Holy crap, Chris. I think we're back. I think this is working. I know we're technically live right now, but this actually isn't live. You're seeing us from the past. Chris, what's going on?
Hey, buddy. So guys, this is going to be actually episode. This is okay. So funny enough, this is actually our return to form episode, but actually, this is episode 2 for you guys because we didn't want to stop the flow once we got back into the groove. But Ryan has to go deal with some important family stuff out of town, medical related, and it couldn't be helped. So we wanted to record an episode. So that's the one you're watching now. And this is actually a day before the live episode that you're going to see that you will have already seen. Yes. Like we said.
That makes like no, you made like no sense there.
Dude,
I'm gonna be okay.
It's
So
back to the future.
we're doing the live episode tomorrow, which is a week from when you're going to see this episode because we have to record this one because I will be out of town next week, and we kind of want to get into the regular groove of having a weekly episode because, you know, we have tend to have troubles with that in the past. So this is our not live episode that will be followed by many live episodes. Yeah, and he's gone. See, this is already just, it's falling apart here. It's falling apart.
Well, that's what I said. See? And I brought this back from our episode that we did the other day.
Good job. Chris, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's going good. It's nice to be back. Guys, it's been a minute. It's been a crazy summer. It's back to fall. It's almost Halloween time. Almost time to get into my Ghostbusters outfit.
Halloween time.
Halloween time. We are back. And, man, there's been so much to talk about. And so, again, you guys will have already seen the first episode where we're going to be catching up, or where we have caught up. This is going to be a problem on all the games that we're super excited about. I won't talk about that because we're going to talk about that, and you will have heard us talk about that.
Wow. Yep. This might be our worst intro to an episode ever. I'm pretty sure.
We promised people that nothing was going to change.
This is true. The most professional podcast.
They got a proper audio opening, proper video, and everything. They can't have it all. So yeah. Today is going to be a bit of a few wild cards. We're going to talk about some games that we played recently, and but not too recently, and also some stuff that we've played over the last 6 months that we still wanted to talk to you guys about and talk to each other about because Ryan and I haven't really super caught up either over the summer, and and we'll just pick off a few wild card games, and then we're going to jump into some tech conversation because we are being bombarded by new VR toys, I guess, kind of. But Ryan and I were talking about it yesterday, and we're like, it's like on two different spectrums. So what we're going to talk about is the Quest 3S. But then, you know, that's kind of like on your lower end entry point as far as like accessibility and getting like everybody and their dog into VR. But then on the other hand, you've got Sony's approach, which is like the PS5 Pro, which is like super boutique VR, at least for the masses.
In theory, anyways, but we're gonna get to that, I think.
But we'll get into that. But before we do that, I just big shout out to our patrons. The fact that you guys stay with us through the ups and downs. I know Ryan's kept the channel going for the most part throughout the summer. Me, not so much. And then obviously with the Virtual Boys being on hiatus, we just super appreciate that you guys stick around. So
that's why I give them free stuff. I gotta keep them around for a reason, right?
We really need to do a better job at that. So
I know.
I really hope that we deliver on that this time, guys. We've been talking about things we want to do as far as, you know, getting back to some core values in the channel. But we'll talk more about that as things develop. But Ryan, what have you been playing?
Okay, so this episode, I want to talk about Subside. I've been hearing about this game for a while. Everyone's just like, "Oh my god, play it! It's better. It's the best looking VR game on the planet. It's so amazing." And then that's true enough. And my buddy, one of my VR buddies was actually like, "Have you played it yet?" I was like, "No." He's like, "It's pretty amazing." So like, all right, fine. Like, we'll do it. I dropped $30 Canadian, like something like that. Put it in. Definitely has a very similar style to Kayak VR Mirage, which is kind of, I guess, my personal benchmark for like what VR can look like as far as realism or even hyper realism goes. So definitely is
just to put a pin in that is it just me, or did Kayak VR Mirage like kind of like seem to come out and then like its graphical style just got like aped by like because there's that other kayak game that looks
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much
yeah,
like
yeah.
it and then subside and with both of those games I'm like looking up I'm like did the same developer from Kayak VR Mirage just like double down on his engine and it's like nope and like is there an engine that they're all using that
Yeah, that I couldn't tell you. I actually don't know. I forgot what the other kayak game.
because they all kind of do water in a very hyper real way.
Yeah, and even the rocks and stuff look very similar. Like some stuff. So Subside, I played this thing on like max settings as far as the game's internal graphics options go. And it ran okay on my laptop. It wasn't it ran good enough if you at least stay still. I mean, when you're underwater, your view is actually it gets pretty foggy pretty fast. So you're kind of your vision's pretty limited as far as how far you can see. Like the draw distance is just as
Yeah,
it's the murkiness of the water, but it's also just limited draw distance. So performance wise, I didn't really run into too many issues with my little 4070 laptop. Um, but it looked good. Like I said, you get close to certain rocks, and they look like rock. Like they look like you're in nature. But then like some other assets just don't look as like good. So it kind of, I mean, it's early access, so I don't want to say like, oh, this guy, it's a good looking game for sure. And I'm not sure what the time frame is for this. I mean, the game basically is just like explore the ocean, look for coins, look for keys, unlock new tools to help you swim around better. It's very much experiential. And at the time of this recording, I've been trying to unlock the shark. There's like a shark tank experience level, very much akin to what looks like the old PlayStation Worlds stage. It looks like,
is
but
that
I
called
have to.
Ocean Descent?
No, the actual was it Ocean Descent?
The PSVR Worlds experience, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Was it? Sure, Ocean Descent. We'll just go with that. It's been so long. Um, so I haven't been able to unlock that stage yet, which is the stage I wanted to get to. But you have to
Yeah,
find like these four shark
so they hide it
idols.
behind collectibles.
Yeah, and I can't. And the shark idols, it's like the size of like a little like squeaky toy. But you are still exploring like a huge, like a big bay in the ocean. So like you have to really keep out with these things. And yeah, so I didn't get a chance to get there, but it looks good. I'm not gonna say it doesn't look good. It looks really good. I hope they put more game behind it, besides what's there now, because it does feel like one of those things you put someone in to impress them, like the Shark Tank experience, and then move on. Like I was already kind of bored of just looking for coins, and like it was kind of already getting old. Um,
You know
but
what? I feel like there's a real lack of that though right now. So I really appreciate the fact that they're to have the ability to have some show and tell games just because
mm,
like you know you and I are the same we're always and I think most of you guys that are watching there one of our favorite things to do is to just like throw friends and family into cool ass VR experiences because you know going on now like what almost 7 years into my VR journey and it's still almost no one has VR, especially not the high end experiences that I can offer them on PC and PSVR 2, right? And so
mm,
it's fun to put people into things, but it's hard to put them into games that have a lot of explanation of like what to do. Like,
yeah,
you know, like some of the more recent things that I might have been playing, like, you know, like Into the Radius, for example. It's like it's really hard to put somebody into that game.
no, you can't.
I mean, it's just, you know, like and that's the struggle is like it's even gaming friends that I have. And it never seems to work. I mean, that's another episode, but it's like I swear to God, every time I go to show somebody something in VR, everything just
Oh yeah,
shits the
there's
bed.
all of a sudden there's updates for sure, and oh yeah, it's every problem that happens when you're trying to show VR to
Like I
friends.
tried to show
100%.
some I tried to show some people Golf Plus last weekend. And this you know, like you figure that's a pretty safe experience and they're golfers. The floor height was fucked. And I couldn't figure it out why. I literally could not figure out I was linking to the PC so as I wanted to use the PC version to show them. And it was through my Quest. And every time they jumped into the game, they were 2 feet off the green. And I had to go onto the Quest side because this was not running through Steam VR, it was running through the Oculus app, which doesn't have height adjustment. I had to go onto the Meta side on the Quest, go into its accessibility options, raise and raise up the height, which had nothing to do with the PC side, but for some reason it adjusted the play height. Like it's crap like that. That is why I don't PC game. But anyways, I digress. I want more experiences where I can just throw somebody into it. Like the PlayStation and the PSVR 1 days, I
Mhm.
had just so many games. Whether it was like, throwing them into the Battlefront experience where it was pretty much just put a controller in their hand and all they had to do is kind of move around and shoot a little bit. They couldn't really die. Ocean Descent. Obviously, there was the job simulators, but even games like Super Hot and Electronauts and Eve Valkyrie, and there was just a lot of games that were like really impressive and easy to get into. And so there's definitely games like Subside and Kayak VR Mirage. I really enjoy them for that aspect of it.
Yeah, and even Subside, I wouldn't even say it's quite there to even to show off just yet. Not because of the visuals, but actually the controls are also kind of like finicky. Like the swimming is doesn't feel as good as other swimming games, even Hubris or the Triton Down one.
I
I had
never
to
played Triton Down,
I
all those
dude,
years later.
that was one of my favorite. It's only an hour and a half long. It's
Yeah,
a short ass game, and it's available for I think Quest, PC, PlayStation VR. I don't think it's
I
a
think
VR2 game.
no, but it's
Um,
on everything else, I think.
yeah, and
Yeah.
for me, it was a great, fun, action packed. It felt like I was in a movie, and it ended. It was almost too short, I guess, but it's only a $10 game, so
Yeah.
it was kind of a perfect. Like I wanted more, but I wasn't left like wanting, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and so there's just some like the swim in the subside, like you're supposed to like swim, right? And it kind of works, but by the end, I kind of realized if I just went like this, like I was actually just like motorboat, and like I was just like just cruising to. So I just kind of the immersion kind of went out the window as well. And you can use like the trigger to swim where you want to, but it's really slow. There's just some issues. Like I said, it's early access. It's only $30. And he's getting a bunch more content levels, everything else. So not to say I'm not trying to like crap on this thing. It's definitely it looks great and has potential to look even greater for sure. And it is one of those things where, like I said, if you want to like show somebody VR, that is probably it's probably gonna be the most recent example of something that just might blow people away in regards to visual fidelity in a headset.
I think we're very close to getting into some real show-stopping VR titles. And I say that at least on the PC side, not to shit on anyone else, but the reason I say that is that when you see what some of like the Unreal Engine is capable of doing with some of this, like there's a term for it in the graphics settings, but when you see these games like oh shit, what was it called? The I think it was called Record. Maybe I'm screwing that up, but and then there was a knockoff version that beat them to the punch as far as coming out into like open access, early access, but like playable, called Body Cam, and it was like a real life cop shooters. I guess that's not really the word I'm looking for, but it looks like body cam footage from like police shows that you might have been watching,
Mhm.
but it's from a first person point of view, and it's got this hyper real lighting system, and I'm sure anybody who's uh active in the gaming community knows what I'm talking about right now. It looks almost photoreal. The way it moves, but a lot of just how it looks in the world. And what was crazy was somebody used UEVR because it was an Unreal Engine game to put it into VR. And a lot of the UEVR footage that you see of people, they have had to turn that dynamic lighting off. And it goes from like photoreal to like a good looking game, but it's like the photoreal is just gone, and it's all about the lighting. It's this like this the insane level of like I guess I think it's in like an advanced ambient occlusion that Unreal Engine is using, and its ability to cast like real world lighting. The difference that level of lighting system makes on just like video game assets is mind blowing. And I found a guy on YouTube that had managed to get with a lot of screwing around, had managed to get was it body cam running with that dynamic lighting in UEVR.
Mm,
And he said
cool.
he had to tweak a lot, but it looks insane. And like that's where we're getting graphics wise with Unreal Engine 5, and the fact that that guy was able to get it running in VR. I mean, back to my original comment. I just wonder if like I don't even know if Kayak VR Mirage and the other games are running in Unity. I don't remember if they're Unreal or Unity or what's going on there.
Can't
But
remember offhand.
it makes me wonder if some assets drop there, like water assets and certain real world objects like rock formations and stuff that is just
On a
all
quick
of a
side
sudden
note, actually,
caught on.
Kayak Mirage VR, Kayak VR Mirage, they just dropped their first multiplayer patch for at least for the PSVR version, if not for the PC version as well, where now you can play. It's only 1v1, but it now is live multiplayer, not like the pre-recorded like avatars you would race against before.
Which could be
So
really
just,
cool to just chill with a friend.
oh, I agree. So just a little side note. I just wanted to mention that because I do, I love that game. I
In
guess.
addition to the white water that they dropped. I was gonna buy
Yes,
that, but man, it was like 15 or $16 Canadian. And I was like, oh, for one kind of whitewater experience.
it was cool. I enjoyed it.
Like, but now that other, what's the other kayak game
I
that
don't remember.
but you know what I'm
No.
talking about, PC only right now.
Yeah, I saw it ages ago. That's why
And
I
it's
can.
like it's got a lot of whitewater rafting in it, and so I was like, I don't know. Anyway, um,
Anyways,
so yeah, Subside. I need to check that out too because I was playing Subnautica over the summer here because I was just looking for something to jump into with a little bit of depth in VR, and I mean that game still looks beautiful in VR, beautiful, and it runs amazing. Um, I really struggle with that game as far as finding anything really to like grab on to like do though. It just
mhm.
I'm all for open world survival games, but man, it's just no hand holding at all. It's just kind of like you got to just find things, go. I don't know. It's not my I don't love the progression system in it, but damn does it ever look good in VR. It's a shame that we've never gotten that ported over to the PlayStation and that Subnautica 2 never got an official VR port. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. It's all controller based, so I can't comment on any of the swimming.
Mhm.
Uh, a few more games though that I wanted to just touch on briefly that I experienced over the summer break here was one that most people may not even know of called Paradox of Hope. It was a game that was in early access on PC that I
It
had kept
sounds
my
like
eye
a
on.
really busted ass like Japanese translation is what that sounds like.
Kinda.
Paradox of Hope. Like that's nonsense. That's nonsense. Title.
So yeah, you're right. It actually is when you really think about it. So what it is, I think it was made by like one guy, and I remember looking at it, going visually, it looked amazing. And people that had played like really early access versions of it were early access. I can't even speak now. Early access versions of it were like, wow, this is really great, even though there's not much here yet. So I was kind of like, all right, screw it, I'll wait. And then it just kind of disappeared. And then it came across my radar over the summer that it had actually been shut down. They had gotten a cease and desist letter from what the heck is their name now? Not Team Silver, but the guys whoever Deep Silver, whoever it is that's working on the Metro series.
I
Now
actually don't know the answer to that.
I know that the same guys. Just my brain is just missing firing right now. The guys who did Arizona Sunshine, that developer, and After the Fall, they're the
Vertigo
ones.
Games.
Yeah, Vertigo Games is also working on Metro, but I'm pretty sure it's Deep Silver. The actual developers of the Metro series are also involved in that, and they gave a cease and desist letter to Paradox of Hope saying that you can't do this game, and even though it was only in early access. And I had heard that it was very Metroid, and I was like, well, now I want to play it. So it had been shut down. I found it on the pirating sites. I downloaded it, played it, and holy crap, it's Metro.
4A is actually who it is. 4A Games.
No,
Um,
for Paradox of Hope.
no, for Metro.
No, you're wrong.
Continue. Continue.
But anyways, Metro, it looks like Metro. I mean, it plays like Metro. It's got the same kind of like it literally has the same like voiceover. It has the same aesthetic. You have like spider
Developed
web.
by 4A Games.
Don't believe
I'm.
it. Anyways, you're ruining my narrative.
Are we past the 10-minute mark? Fuck you.
So anyway, it's Metro through and through. I mean, everything from the audio design to the graphics to the gameplay, the way the guns look. You even like take on and off like air filters. Anyone who's played the Metro series, I mean, it reeks of the Metro games. It even ends. It's only about an hour long because it just got like the development just got shut down. It literally ends with a train like train car sequence going down the train track while you're shooting like monsters that are coming after you, which is literally in the Metro trailer that you can see from the Metro VR game. So it's no doubt why it got shut down, because like you can't do something as good or better than us. It's like CBS going after Star Trek fan films for making fan films that were better than they were
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah, yeah.
TV.
So
um,
final answer here: 4A Games is the developer. Deep Silver is the publisher of the second and game second, third, and fourth games.
okay, so the publisher. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay,
Right.
well that's interesting because then Deep Silver is the only one I think that's involved. That means it's got to be Vertigo Games is like the key developer. Ugh. Anyways, that's a topic
What do you
we'll,
mean?
we'll
Oof. That's a topic for yesterday or tomorrow, depending on how you're looking at it.
that's a topic for next week. A week ago.
A week ago.
Where's my hoverboard? Anyway, I just wanted to mention it because I played it and I was like, holy shit. Like, it's a good idea it actually got shut down because, I mean, it was early access, but it was on its way to being very, very good. So, I mean, if you guys have the Pirate Bay, you could probably find that game. I didn't have to do anything other than just download it and play it. And I didn't really feel too guilty since the game's been shuttered. That developer has since gone on to work on a new project now that's pretty much Into the Radius clone. So he just wants trouble. Speaking of which, I also played Into the Radius 2, which
On.
on PC because it's only early access.
Oh, number
And
2. Yes. Sorry, I
Into the
missed
Radius 2, yeah. And since you guys all been watching this a week after, we've talked about Into the Radius 1. But Into the Radius 2, I just wanted to mention, for those of you who love the first one, there's no mention yet whether it's coming to PSVR 2, but it's in early access on PC right now, and I mean it's fantastic already. It's graphically taken to the next level. It's just a much better looking game, much better playing game. You can jump. The AI is better. You're not just fighting shadows anymore. It's a fun little game. It's just only one area right now, and it's missing a lot of features. And so I just don't play early access games really because I don't want to just kind of play the game piecemeal. I want to play it when it's done. But I
it.
was so interested after playing Into the Radius 1 that I wanted to see what the second one was like. Now, funny enough, the developers have been very open about the fact that some early design decisions on the programming side of Into the Radius 1 really screwed them for some of the things they wanted to do with the series, especially optimization wise and graphically. And I actually think that Into the Radius 2, in a lot of ways, was just Into the Radius 1.5. Like, I think they just kind of like stopped development because for anyone who's played Into the Radius, there's only a handful of like areas, and the game just kind of does end in a castle rush, and it really does feel like they were just kind of like, "Okay, we have concluded this game because we really want to move forward." Lessons learned, and that feels like Into the Radius 2. So, just really excited to see where that goes. I've really enjoyed my experience with it so far, but this will mean a lot more to people after we've talked about it in the
Good.
first episode.
That's it then. Should we
Yeah.
get to the meat of this episode?
Yeah, let's get to the meat.
I think we should cover the Quest. What do you want to cover first? Quest or PlayStation Pro?
You know what? Let's just talk about the PS5 Pro.
All right.
I feel
Yeah,
like
let's go on the negative out of the way so we end on a more positive note.
us negative? No.
Man, okay, so I quick backstory. So when I got my PSVR, the first PSVR, it was I didn't own a PlayStation. And and so the PSVR came out October and the PS4 Pro came out November. So I just borrowed my brother-in-law's PS4 for a month till the Pro came out. It just didn't make sense to me to not get the Pro. And it worked out for PSVR 1. We got a lot of games that utilize the Pro substantially in many cases, and in other cases, not so much. But overall, it was made PSVR better, made some games with poor resolution look a little less muddier, enough where it was like tolerable in some cases. It was a good purchase. I didn't regret waiting and paying the extra coin for that. Now, having a PS5 and seeing what the Pro can potentially do. I mean, I'm talking specifically VR, and we'll talk about not VR stuff a bit, obviously, because they kind of do overlap. But as far as I mean, it's almost $1,000. It's $700 American, which is almost $1,000 Canadian, just shy, like $960.
Is it really
And
that? It's that. That's such a
it's
brutal.
960 bucks. And it's 959.99 is the exact retail price for the PS5 Pro. And I was just at Best Buy today, and the Horizon bundle for the PSVR is $819. So if you want to maximize your VR experience with the PlayStation, you're looking at uh over $1,700, and the Pro does not come with a disc drive, doesn't come with a stand, so there's a little tacked on cost there as well. If you want to also get the charging stuff, and this applies to multiple headsets. If you want to get like the to charge your controllers without having to like swap or plug them with cables and stuff like that, there's all these additional costs that do make this kind of pushing that $2,000 mark, which would be fine. I'm not against spending money on VR. I've spent more than my fair share on VR, but the Pro right now there's two VR games being supported by it officially, and that's Cube or Cyube as I've been referred to it on this podcast.
Mhm.
Cube
My
and
brain says Sayu when I
I
see
know,
it.
right? I know. And Kayak VR Mirage, which those two devs have already confirmed Pro patches or support whatever up increasing the FPS or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what the details are behind that, but those are the only two devs that have actually confirmed their VR games will be utilizing the Pro. And no offense to either of those games, they do fill a niche, but
They're
no
not headset
one's
sellers. They're not reasons you're
no
buying a Pro for.
no, and that leaves. I mean, I have a list of, and the only other games that are getting a Pro patch that could possibly matter are, I've lost my list, of course. Podcast notes, I got it right here. Are Gran Turismo 7, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Village, and No Man's Sky. But all those games are getting flat Pro support, not necessarily VR Pro support.
Yeah.
So, and there's other stuff we can talk about in a bit, but so it's, if you're just a VR guy, I don't know why you would buy this at launch unless you just have money and just have nothing to spend it on.
So before even the specs were announced, Ryan and I had talked about the Pro, and we were already definitely on two sides of this coin. Ryan was kind of like, "Fuck that, I don't give a shit." Like even without support being mentioned, I think you were just like, I'm just not spending that kind of money. I think we'd heard the price at
Yeah,
that
I
point,
mean,
right? But we didn't,
I
and
don't
we hadn't
think
heard a lot of
the
specs.
PS5 has been used. I don't think the PS5 has been used properly to begin with, as far as like pushing VR to its limits to start even talking about a Pro. Like we need a Pro.
So I disagree with that. Like I said, like Ryan and I normally agree on things. And this I'm on two different sides of this. First of all, I think that the PS5, let's talk about flat games. I mean, just as an example, is I think the PS5 has been, I mean, obviously when you get into those final years and developers are on their second or third titles, especially if they're first party studios, they learn a lot of tricks. And so they squeeze every last bit out of these systems. I'm going to guess that like Polyphony, for example, with Gran Turismo, is probably like with the PSVR 2 version of Gran Turismo. I'm going to guess is squeezing quite a bit out of that PS5. I'm going to guess. I mean, it's incredible what it's getting away with.
I'm not
But
disagreeing with that. I'm just yeah, I
no,
guess I
but
kind of meant the amount of games
yeah,
that are.
but I okay, you will absolutely. No, but I still think it's few and far between. Like, do I think that the Resident Evil games are maxing out what they can with that PlayStation? Yeah, probably. Some of those AAA games like that, I think, are probably already pushing it. But again, you never know. But even going back to the flat games, I disagree with people who are like, oh, well, they haven't even tapped all the PS5. I'm like, bullshit. They maxed the PS5 out at launch. That since launch, we have been having to choose in flat games between a performance and a quality mode. Like literally, the PS5 could not run even launch games at like a 4K resolution and 60 frames in most cases, or even if it could, like say like Ratchet and Clank, for example, I think did do maybe. I think it was 4K at 60, but it wouldn't do ray tracing. So there was always trade-offs right at the very beginning, and that's a first party game. And
Mm,
so like do I feel like the PlayStation 5 is already underpowered in some ways? Yeah, it really is. And you're seeing it in the flat games right now more than ever. Like that Wukong game and the new Space Marines game. These games are struggling
mm.
with the PS5. they're starting to push pretty hard graphical requirements. So is there a need for it? I'm like, yeah, I definitely think there is. And so when I heard that the Pro was announced, I was like, oh yeah, because I was all in on the Pro, on the 4. I already had a PS4 and I bought a Pro, and I bought the Pro with just the hopes and promises that it would benefit my VR experience. And it did. But I mean, we all know that like you can still count on probably two hands how many games really used the Pro. Um, some games just jump to mind with me. Higher resolution, smoother frame rate. Some games put in more assets. Like I remember like Dirt Rally. There's basically no rain on the windscreen in VR if you were not on the Pro, and
Mhm.
it didn't show the cracks on the windshield. And there was just like things like that on the PSVR 1 and the PS4 Pro. And so, but there were certain games that like really took their time with it, like Mage's Tale. It got a very much delayed but very well made pro patch, and it was like a different game. Like they took a blurry mess of a game. It was very
How dare you?
it
How
was
dare
quite
you?
blurry, and they made it, and it like doubled the resolution. I think of games like the Solace Project was like an ugly mess of a game.
A game that no longer exists, by the
I
way.
know, this is really sad. That's a real hidden treasure. But on the Pro, it looked amazing. It
Yeah.
got sharpened up so much. Where now I feel like we're in a different world a little bit when it comes to the PSVR 2, in the fact that, with the exception of some just badly optimized games, like I think of something like Hellsweeper, we don't I don't feel like we don't suffer from this huge problem of like blurry jagged games like we did on the PSVR 1. We struggle with reprojection
Yeah.
and maybe and still low resolution games, but a lot of like what we're struggling with these days is especially with the higher end games is frame rate.
Well, and even still, like on that note, it seems like there was a big push during the first year of the PSVR 2 to like everything was at 120, which ended up being 60 reprojected. And it seems now like the new norm seems to be just 90 native. And
So so a really interesting experiment that I played actually last night I wanted to talk to you about. Now, again, this being episode 2 since we're back, I won't get too much into it, but Into the Radius on the PSVR is a really interesting game graphically. Now, I've played the Quest version, I played the PC version, and the PSVR 2 version, I don't want to call it the definitive version, but it's darn close. But
when you
what's
factor
real
in the haptics and stuff, it kind of
that's
does.
what I'm saying, right? And it just runs really smooth because even on PC, remember I told you that the developers said that there were some design issues early on that was hurting them. I can't remember specifically what it was, but it was some design like coding and graphical engine choices that really hurt them in the early stages because I think they were fairly new to making games, and they said that they always struggled with performance on Into the Radius, and on PC, even on like I could run it on the highest settings, but sometimes it was just a little like unpredictable. It's much more steady on the PlayStation. But what I wanted to talk about specifically was there's a graphical settings feature on the PSVR 2 version of Into the Radius, which we don't like we're not used to really seeing in PSVR 2, and we really need to see more of it. So what it offered you was a performance or a quality option. Nothing weird about that. But on the PSVR 2, we don't often see that. And what the choice was 120 reprojected with all the visual enhancements on. And mainly what that meant was real time shadowing. I've been back and forth between the two versions, and what it comes to real world shadows. And once you notice them, it's hard not to see how much of an influence that makes. I mean, like from like shrubbery to your own self casting a shadow to just even like buildings having shadows that honestly they probably could have baked in. So it's an interesting choice. But man, when you go to performance mode and it puts it into a native 90, screw the shadows. Like I'm sorry, but like the difference in smoothness is night and day.
Mhm.
And I love that they gave us that choice, and all these games should have that choice if they could. I love that they gave us. Again, it's you do miss the shadows, but man, is it so it's so much smoother. And not just that, it almost looks higher resolution because as soon as you turn or if you even run fast and you can feel any reprojection kick in, you just feel a little bit of that blur kick in.
Hmm.
And it just I'm really sensitive to that. Like I often say that I've always been frame sensitive and I'm less resolution sensitive. But so reprojection, man, I notice it instantly. And being able to flip between the two and just show people the difference between
Yeah.
the say like the Resident Evil experience, which is what you get used to with reprojection, and then flipping into like the 90 native, which is more like the experience of playing Saints and Sinners 2. It's pretty phenomenal. And so I love that they've managed to do that on the PlayStation VR 2. But where I guess bringing it back to the Pro is I'd love to not have to make that decision.
Hmm.
Like I I mean I think without being like you know a technical know-it-all, I'm almost positive that the Pro would have been able to do Into the Radius with shadows and a native 90 at least. So pretty much on par with what PC is able to do.
Yeah,
And
and that I mean, yeah, and that's you'd hope so. I mean, considering the Pro is supposed to be like what 3 times more powerful or like whatever technical mumble jumble they throw out there as far as teraflops and processing power, it doesn't matter. This thing is way more powerful than the PS5, at least on
okay,
paper.
so for those of you who don't want the technical mumbo jumbo, we won't get into it too much because you could find that easily yourselves. But I was listening to Digital Foundry, and they said essentially the PS4 Pro has went from a 2070 GPU. Sorry, like the PS5 would have a 2070 GPU if you had to assign it something, and it goes to a 3070 with the Pro. And so for for just for and for anyone who has a PC and you're just trying to find something in your brain because that's what I want. I'm like, well, what does this mean in like just more like I don't know basic terms for what you can expect? Well, that's what you can expect. And what Digital Foundry was saying that was interesting was there's not a lot of increase in the CPU side, and that's the same as the PS4 Pro. It had the same issue. It got a GPU upgrade, but it didn't see a big increase in the CPU side. And where
Mhm.
I was and what Digital Foundry was explaining, they were using the new Grand Theft Auto 6 as an option as an example because they said that from the footage that they've seen from Grand Theft Auto 6 and they've been able to assess with their tools, they're pretty sure that what we've seen running has been 30 frames like in the
Oh, okay.
footage that was a lot was what had been shown before. And they said that like so they said what people need to understand when it comes to like the computing power going on with a lot of these games is that just because you have a higher GPU doesn't mean you're necessarily going to see the increase on the frame side of it. And
Right.
so that can be a problem. And if we remember that on the PS4 Pro, what did we mostly see increased in the games is resolution. And that's what they were saying. We're seeing a lot of games were going for like, an actual 4K in this and that, right? But frame rate's a different problem. And where they explained it, which I thought was a really neat way of explaining it, was they said if you take a Grand Theft Auto game, even Grand Theft Auto 5, there's been around for like over 10 years. He's like all the population logic, all the physics, everything that has to do with the movement of objects in the game and that whole real world like living NPCs, all of that is all CPU. And he's like, and that's the concern is that even GTA 6 when it comes out, even on the Pro, probably won't be able to run the game at 4K and 60 frames, even
Mhm.
with that extra horsepower. and
Well,
and it's like and it's kind of like okay so it's kind of like that's the problem is for me it's kind of like I need to see what these games are actually going to like
yeah.
deliver. And so ultimately even though I was all in on the Pro and you were kind of like nah fuck that shit, I'm not on the fuck that shit side of things, but I'm definitely on the I'm not pulling the trigger yet. I'm just not. Like it's $1,000 Canadian. And I mean, yeah, Kayak VR Mirage, I see ghosting. I see the reprojection happening in that game all over the place, especially having been able to play the PC version.
Mm.
I'm not paying $1,000 to most likely what they're going to do is have it running native 90.
Yeah. Well, and then that's to my point. Like I'm not saying like what the PS5 can potentially do, because a lot of the stuff that they're promising, even from the flat side of things, will translate to VR. As far as even ray tracing and that kind of stuff, but that's still assuming the games utilize it, and that's where it comes back to the whole issue of just the lack of AAA titles available for PSVR 2, and the fact we're getting Quest ports with visual upgrades. Like Max Mustard is something I talked about last week, but or reviewed last week, where the PSVR 2 version got like a pretty substantial visual boost in my opinion. It's still a cartoonish game. My point stands though is that we're not getting, outside of the games we got last year in regard to the Resident Evils, Gran Turismo, I guess No Man's Sky is in that conversation, but we've gotten the last game was Resident Evil 4. I don't think I'm missing anything crazy that pushed that felt like it was pushing the headset to its limits. It's that lack of games that makes buying this as a VR user next to pointless, because most of those games outside of the reprojection thing, which is a valid issue, but most games still shouldn't have trouble hitting 90 frames because they're mostly Quest ports that are running
Yeah,
natively at
yep, yep,
72
yep.
there. So this is it's just a matter, it's value versus dollar. Like if every developer comes on and fixes their game, or does whatever, or patches this thing, because once again it's up to the developers to patch their games
And that's the
to
problem.
make them utilize that, which is another issue, because we've seen countless times in the last 8 years of developers who just didn't go back to titles, who just didn't bother because they were done with them. They moved on.
The teams the teams were disbanded, or the
Yeah,
studio shuttered. I mean, VR is very hit or miss for profitability for a lot of these developers. And so it's like finding these teams still together or motivated to revisit
yeah.
is a
Is it even
problem.
worth it? Is spending the time to optimizing our game for the PS5 Pro going to warrant any more sales? Like, will that get more sales for Cosmonious High? Like, I doubt it. So there's no point. So then we're left with these slightly better Quest ports that realistically won't see any major improvements unless those games have been huge successes, I guess, or continue to sell well. So it just makes that not worth it, especially when you factor in the fact that they're one of the big things is their PSSR. Their it's basically their AI upscaling is
It's
what it is.
DLSS in PlayStation
Thank you,
terms.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
And so what that does, yeah, for those that don't know, is it basically will it can take those lower resolution whatever gaming assets and just make them look better naturally, and using the AI, which only the pro can do, should basically make your games, allow your games to run better without you noticing how much less work it's doing. Like the AI is doing all the heavy
It's
lifting. It's not.
and for any of the PC with like an RTX card and has done
Yeah.
DLSS, and I know that I'm trying to remember the other AMD's got their own version of it, but it's a game changer. Like, for example, No Man's Sky in VR on the PC side of things. I mean, it just always struggled being a flat game that was doing VR as well. It was so hard to get the settings set properly so that you could get you could try to balance like draw distance and animation quality and just everything, and have it run well on the planet, and then well when you went through the atmosphere and were flying around. It just struggled, and the DLSS just took a lot of that heavy lifting away.
So
It's not without its issues though, because with the DLSS support, you could choose different levels of quality. So it wasn't perfect, but it definitely helped a lot.
And so just to finish off my point there, so the PS5 Pro is getting that, so it's potentially making these games run at native or 4K at 60 frames per second without much issue. And that will be coming to PSVR 2 at some point down the line, but at the PS5 Pro's launch, the PSSR will not be available for PlayStation VR 2.
Yeah,
Which once again, it's just another reason, at least why to hold off, I guess, is the main thing.
I
I mean, I'm
agree.
not saying don't buy a pro.
I'm taking a wait and see, because I don't regret buying the PS4 Pro. And if somebody said to me, "You'll get at least as many enhanced games as you did with the Pro on the 4," I'd be like, sweet, right? Um, and the price is less of an issue for me. I mean, if you're financially strapped, the price is an issue no matter what.
Yeah,
But I mean, I do say, like, and I've been saying this before, when people who bitch at the price and thinking Sony's like gouging, I'm sorry, but if it is on par with a 3070 GPU, just before we started the show, I decided to jump on and see what American pricing was for a 3070 GPU, and they're still around the $500 range, US. That's $500. That's, if you're in the US, approach $200 more. Um, and you get, and you have the whole system. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's like, who's this for? Like, I mean, I always felt like the pros were definitely aimed at console gamers who just weren't going to be PC gamers, who just do not want the hassle, but want the best possible console experience.
100%. And just a quick little side note there, but you the factor in the price of the PSVR 2 headset compared to the price of even the Meta Quest 3S,
I
which
know.
is essentially half the price, it does make the PC option look pretty viable in comparison.
Yeah, you could get in. I mean, you could probably get a pretty decent prepackaged PC in the US for like, I don't know, let's say $1,000. And I mean, and nothing incredible, but decent. And a Quest. So let's say $1,500 all in. Quest 3 and or a Quest 3S or whatever, and a decent PC, and you're playing PC games. But you're not getting the Sony exclusives. And I mean, I don't know, that's tough. It's like, that's kind of still the reason I would recommend a PSVR 2 these days, is because of Gran Turismo, the two
Yeah,
Resident Evils. You know, I don't know. It's just a really tough one. I just feel like it's a wait and see, because especially on the VR front, we just don't know. Let's just say hypothetically that we're now into like February, and it turns out that like Alien, Behemoth, Metro, Zombie Army, um, I think I'm missing one. Let's just say all these. Did I say Metro? I think I said
you did.
Metro.
You did.
I think I'm missing something in there. But
You're
anyways,
thinking of Batman probably, but that's not
no,
the
I
case.
try not to say Batman. But let's just say all of those games, they all come out, and the majority of them are running with reprojection on the PSVR 2, trying to be the PC versions.
Right.
And we find out that, like, and then, but all of those games get pro patches. And now we're in February. Like, and if I don't have a PC, let's just say PC's not a part of the equation, I'm all in. Like, if those games are what we think they're going to be, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Now,
I get.
based on previous history of all of those games, I'm going to guess the Behemoth will run at a native 90, just like Saints and Sinners 2, as an
Mhm.
example. I'm going to guess that Alien's going to have reprojection, based on Arizona Sunshine 2. Metro, I think, is also going to have reprojection.
I don't know.
Ba-
I feel like the native 90s kind of becoming the new norm with this stuff. I know where you're coming from, what you're
I would
saying.
hope so. I would
I
hope
have
so. And
faith in native
and this is all,
90.
this is all conjecture. And the people that were lucky enough to go hands on with Metro and Behemoth at Gamescom, I don't think they were allowed to talk a lot about performance. None of them mentioned it. They just
Mhm.
said that it looked amazing. And so, I don't know. It's all pure conjecture, but this just plays back to my whole wait and see argument, right? Of right now, I mean, if we're talking VR, see, I also play flat games, and I still prefer to flat game on my console. I just do. I just I just when I go to play games, I want zero issues. I don't want to update graphics cards. I don't want issues with anything. I just want to frickin' play. I want to sit on the couch, and I want to just go bling, and I want to play the game. And so I prefer console gaming. And even then, I just got to see, because all they've said so far really is these games support it. These games
Mhm.
support it. And I sit like 10 feet away from the TV on a 4K TV. So technically, with it not being in the 9-foot range on a 65-inch 4K TV, I actually can't see 4K. I know that. I'm not going to play games myself, because if you bring it up, guys, if you want, go on there, Google for like TV resolution and distances. You can at a certain point, you're not even seeing 4K. So I don't care if a lot of these games are 4K. If they're 1440p, I'm good. So I need to know what these games are doing because I never once played Horizon Forbidden West and was like, you know what? This game should be running at 4K and 60 frames. Because I played it at performance, which was 60 frames and 1440, I think. It looked amazing. It looked amazing. On the TV, if I'm sitting in front of a computer screen like this, like, and it's right in front of your face, you can be a lot more sensitive to what you're seeing.
Yeah, I get
But
what
we're
you're saying.
talking playing on a TV. And again, 9 feet, 65-inch, you need to be at least 9 feet from your TV. When I get really close to the TV, if I go to the bathroom, I'm like, oh crap, I can totally tell if this is running in 4K or not. But I'm not buying a Pro for my bathroom breaks. where, where I walk past it and go, damn. I don't know. Like I said, I'm all in on the Pro, but you got to tell me something. And I mean, again, this is just Sony with bad communication skills. Like,
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. Like when they first, through all their announcements with the Pro and going through the deep dive into technology, like every single one of the things they've done, even the trailer, the only mention of PSVR 2 was in the blog post that says, "Yeah, and we're supporting PSVR 2 as well." That was the extent
sounds like a
of.
blog.
Yeah, of course, it's a blog post. Why would they even say that in a trailer, right? It is a little insulting when they keep saying that they're down for PSVR and they're, well, we're still supporting it, but like you don't mention it like at all. Like it's actually like you PS5 Pro should make the PlayStation VR 2 experience better, and you mention that in a blog post, and it's like one sentence. Like it's like, and PSVR 2 will have support as well. Like it's like, oh, like, sure, don't worry, it's still there. Like it's
I know.
it makes me think that like the support that we want this thing to get, it's just not going to happen. You know, like, and even if that were to happen, like if Gran Turismo and Resident Evil, if all those games did get pro patch support for VR, that's awesome. That's great. Let's see what it can do. But
I'm in a racing group online. And it's pretty much the whole racing group is pretty much, even though there are a bunch of PC guys as well in there, the whole group is devoted to Gran Turismo VR. And there's a bunch of guys in there that were like, I'm all in if as soon as I hear that Gran Turismo has no reprojection on the PSVR 2. And the reprojection doesn't even bug me that much in that game because as long as you're driving forward in the cockpit, you don't really see the
yeah,
reprojection of cars until now. If anyone, even if you're doing this, it still looks good. It's literally only if you like manage to catch a car coming across you like this. Like if you're just screwing around with friends and you're driving around, you can see a bit of a ghosting as the cars come by. But I mean, the reprojection just works really well in that game because it's all like this. Whereas reprojection's way more sensitive with this. You know, it's I don't know. The reprojection is interesting. Like because if you just turn in a chair, you don't see it. It's only when you actually move your character in the game world, which
yeah.
I find. I feel like there's got to be a workaround there.
Like confusing. Yeah, I do agree.
If I can move my head around the world space, and it's fine, but when I move my body, you need to reproject. I don't get that, but I'm not nerdy enough to be able to understand that. Anyway, so that I mean, I feel like
cue the comment section on this one.
Yeah, I feel
well,
like that's,
Chris.
like, hey, give it to me. I feel like that's kind of where I'm at with the Pro right now. Is it's like I haven't bought it. Now, I have heard like it's sold out everywhere. Although it sounds like it's mostly scalpers.
Yeah, well, that's why.
And now they're reselling them, and I'm like, and what I'm not sure of is like, are people buying that? Like, people were bitching at 1,000. Are they paying 3,000 for the scalp version? And for what? Like again, I go back like. So there were some amazing pro patches, both flat and VR, that I absolutely love the experience of. And I mean, it was something we also need to mention is again, just remembering Sony's core stance has always been a game can not only come out for the pro version. So like
yeah, no, it's still we're still building towards the lowest common denominator, which in this case is the PS5. And I know that doesn't quite it's the lowest, but
it's the Quest. Well, but honestly, I mean that's what we're seeing too. And and just to backtrack what you were saying is like that is the interesting issue with the PS VR 2 is that you said, well, we're just getting Quest ports. It's like, but what's interesting is like sometimes these developers are in this weird place where they're like they have two versions of the game. They have a PC version, and they have the Quest version. And it's like, well, do we just give them the Quest version, easy peasy, and throw some enhancements in there, or do we try to make the PC version work? And sometimes we get the short end of the stick with that, you know, like Green Hell, for example.
Mhm.
I mean, the PC version's been pretty much abandoned, I think, on that side, anyways. But you know, and then I think the same thing happened with Hellsweeper. It's just like I don't even know what version we got on that game.
I know. I mean, like, I know it's totally fair to throw Hellsweeper under the bus for what they did. I know the game's come a long way since that time. I
It
think it's been
totally
almost a
has.
year. And I know apparently it's right on par with the PC version now, from what I've read.
I know, but that
I
was
never
what
dug
I'm
in.
get. But that was my point. Is like I'm not really sure what version we got there. Like, and I think that was a game that got caught in the middle.
Oh yeah, I mean you can find their presser. They put out a big, huge
Yeah, I remember that.
thing about exactly like what happened during the process. In fact, they were delayed for PS4, and that got switched on its feet, and blah 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 blah. Like, there's a whole big reason as to why the version we got at launch was the version. And kudos for them for basically honing up to basically saying we effed up. Um, One thing I was gonna say is remember when the PS5 dropped, and it still supported PSVR one with that adapter, but there was a few games that actually utilized the power of the PS5, the ones that use the
Hmm.
resolution.
Yeah, if the game
So
originally already had like
yeah, if
an
it was already
uncapped.
built, yeah, it was
Yeah,
uncapped. So Dreams got a pretty big boost.
yeah.
Squadrons got a big one, as did
No Man's Sky.
yeah, right. So with the PS5 Pro, how does PSVR one work with those games? To the 10 guys that are still using their PS5 to play PSVR.
It's funny that you mentioned that though, because I don't think I've heard anything about that. Well, you just watch just breaks them.
I'm actually tempted to dust off. Well, I don't have a Pro, I guess, so never mind. But if
Well,
I
you
had
know,
a
one of the
Pro,
things that the Pro did on the 4, which was interesting, is it had a mode on there. I can't remember what it was. It's been too long now, but it had an enhancement mode. It was only for flat games, I believe. But it would actually, if you turned it on, games that like old games that didn't actually have any patches for the Pro could see performance boosts, like frame rate stabilization and stuff with that enhanced mode on. I haven't heard anything about that with the Pro. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like going back to what you said, it all comes down to what the developers do with it. I would say expect No Man's Sky to take advantage of it.
yeah,
They just
I hope so.
they're just those types. And last I heard that No Man's Sky with that last big graphical update was struggling in a few sections on the PSVR 2. I don't know if they patched that, but like a pro will be helpful for that, and I think they'll be excited about that. But it just really comes down to whether developers see the advantage in it, and it's a lot of that's going to have to come down to sales. Not and now we're not talking about just PSVR 2 sales, we're talking about the pro sales. And it's like, and how small is that market? Are we talking like what's the overlap
Mm,
of people that bought a pro and use a PSVR 2? Like,
yeah,
and when it comes down to the business side of it, that's the problem. And I think us as PSVR 2 gamers, as much as we like it's hard, as we almost have to take a step back and not be and not be entitled and just be like, man, we should just be grateful if we get any enhancements because we don't matter business wise. Like we're a bad idea to invest in.
yeah. I
And
mean, I
so
get the line of thinking, but meh, not for a
I
thousand
know
dollars.
I agree. I mean, I'm just saying, I think that
Yeah.
has to be taken into consideration when you drop that coin, is that you just like keep your expectations pretty low and just be grateful. And honestly, I don't see the PS4 Pro making any sense right now unless you are also interested in the flat game enhancement.
Hmm. Or you don't have a PS5, I guess, and they're kind of maybe diving in for the first time. There could be, I guess, that potential, because the
See,
price difference there is, I guess, not quite as gross if you don't have a PS5. If you're actually buying, I guess, for the first time.
see, for Lindsay and I, and for me, is the big thing is I want another PS5 in the
Yeah, so
house
do I.
because I have the PS5 upstairs in the entertainment unit because we still use it as a 4K player and I play all my games up there on my lazy couch. But then downstairs here in like the YouTube studio, I don't want to I play the system up and down. I drag it up and down the stairs. It's a pain in the ass. I want another system, and I
Yeah.
know that's a first world problem. I was
Yeah.
hoping that was going to be the Pro, but I don't know.
No, I think we both. The takeaway of this conversation from both of us is, I mean, if you're an enthusiast who is curious, wait. I mean, that seems to be like don't like the price isn't going to go down, so just wait. and see what happens and where the dust falls with this, because it might not benefit PSVR even the way we want it to. Like right now, there's 2 games officially being supported. They're not 2 bangers by any stretch.
My
So
biggest excitement is the PSSR, the DLSS support,
yeah,
but it's not even available for VR, right?
not at
Like
launch.
like for example, guys, if that gets when that gets unlocked to PSVR developers, No Man's Sky could end up being the definitive version with like essentially DLSS support and dynamic fovea rendering. Like it's exciting
Yeah,
what it could do,
the potential, the
the potential.
potential.
So I mean, we'll revisit this and see, I guess, a year later, and we'll see what actually happened. I almost guarantee you a year in from now, I will have, because I don't have adult controls. So, but on from one end of the scale to the other end of the scale,
Not really, but I know where you're going.
it totally is the other end of the scale
Not
because
really. No,
you've
it's
got
not.
you
It's
have
not.
you
It's
have
not. It's
you've got
not. This
on
is
okay,
so
dude. On
stupid.
one end, you've got niche, boutique, elitist, entitled mainstream gamers because obviously if you're on PC that's a complete you can just go you can be stupid and have a $10,000 headset, right? But I'm talking about like your mainstream gamers, right? They're the ones that are bickering about $1,000 for a pro or $700 if you're in the US. God, that's a huge exchange. But on the other hand, if you're a cheap motherfucker, you got the Quest 3S.
What do you, yeah. But I
Okay,
mean,
what I mean by what I mean by that by the two extremes is that really is like based on public perception.
I'm going to preface this conversation with the 3S is that me and Chris do not have a 3S yet. I wanted to make that very clear on this podcast so there's no embargoes being broken or anything like that. We are recording this before we get our 3Ss. So we are just talking purely speculatively about what we know about the 3S in regards to what it's supposed to do. So just to throw that out there.
Make sure you have your box hidden there.
Shh, shh.
Anyways, what I was going to say was that let me just explain what I meant is perception based. You've got Sony and they're basically offering like the premium console experience. Like for the mainstream gamers that are not going PC, it's the premium experience and it's a premium price tag. So right, it's 700 1300 is what I heard it is in Australia. Damn.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Right? That's damn.
I
Okay,
mean,
so
it's all
I
comparative.
know
It's
it.
just
It's
yeah.
not really. I don't think
Well,
they're
it is
making that much more money per hour than we are.
no, but it's just their dollar value. Like it's
I
all
know.
it's
I know it sucks.
continue. This is continue.
Let's get into the economics of it.
Right? This is so stupid.
But I'm just saying, like,
No, because you know what? Sony does screw us here in Canada though, because a $20 game on Meta or Steam, $25. A $20 game on PlayStation, $30. Like the PlayStation tax in Canada is also it's ridiculous. They charge double what every other what other company charges for exchange rate. Sorry, now I'm just mad at Sony.
So I'm just thinking here, 120. So it should be by math, it should be $200 more based on the exchange rate. So it should be $900 for us.
Well,
If you add
while I do the math here.
if you add $30, so if you figure the exchange is like 70 cents. So if you add $30 to every 100. Anyways, what I was going to say was that Sony's going after this like, you know,
No.
what? No.
By today's current exchange rate, that $7 is $945 Canadian.
Damn, we really suck here in Canada.
We suck right now. All right.
Anyways, I'm not going to repeat myself over and over again. You know where I was going with this. I'm not going to repeat myself. Is that on one? You've got Sony on one end asking for top dollar for like what they consider the best experience you can get in the console world right now, right? And they're asking people to upgrade, like, and pay a lot of money for it. And then on the other side, you've got Meta, and they're like, I think they're eating a lot of costs on this headset. Like they're trying to offer like a huge bang for your buck.
Oh yeah.
And I don't I'm sure it's being sold at below cost.
There's a way bigger push on the 3S than there was for the 3. Like in my personal opinion, just from what I've seen and perceived, it seems like they are going all in on the 3S compared to the 3. That includes not just the price of the thing, but also the fact they're including like what 6 or 7 games with the headset as well. And the marketing is all about 3S right now. Like it's not even about the 3. Like they are pushing the 3S hard.
They're also ready to push a new headset more. Like, I mean, we talked about this. We've talked about this before, that like they kind of jammed the Quest 2. I still stand by the fact that you always bug me about saying things over and over again.
Oh,
but
yeah,
the fact that this is another one, that the Quest 2 was jammed out to
is there a
catch
shot I can take right now?
Yep. To catch the pandemic, right? But like it really did. Like they just kind of dropped it. And it was like, okay, shit, this is coming out in like 6 weeks. And it didn't have, it's like it had tons of patches still to its operating system. It wasn't ready to run like the full refresh rates. Like it really didn't seem ready. It didn't do hand tracking yet. Like there was a lot of stuff that wasn't ready to launch with the Quest 2. And they had no games taking advantage of it. No games.
Not for a year.
Yeah, right. And so, and they kind of did the same with the Quest 3. It was like pass-through was the big push, but they didn't even have a ton of mixed reality games. And they didn't have really any Quest 3 only games. So now here we are in the fall. Yeah, like there's a lot of games that are going to have either Quest 3 only or Quest 3 support. There's more of a reason to shout it out. The pass-throughs come a long way. There's just a lot more to push.
And for the record, I mean, the Quest 3S and Quest 3 can run everything. Identically. It's basically the same processor and stuff inside. So like, yeah, there's definitely a huge push to make this the standalone. The Quest 3 is now their headset. The Quest 2 has been discontinued. The Quest Pro has finally been discontinued. Obviously the Quest 1 is no longer relevant. Like the Quest 3 is the platform, which I'm assuming they're going to ride for a couple of years, because they, like I said, they canceled the Quest 2 Pro, Quest Pro 2, whatever the
and
next
the Quest 2. They've discontinued the Quest 2.
No,
I was going to say that's another big thing.
They canceled the next Pro, and I think they pushed back the 4. That one could be wrong.
I've heard rumblings, again, basing this off of strictly rumor, that this could be Meta's last hardware release, where they're the ones pushing the hardware, as far as like not having partners in.
Yeah, like, I mean, remember Lenovo or something like that.
We talked in the past that they knew that they were offering up their operating system, and like that they were going the Android route. And I've said to you, I really do think that's where they're going. I don't think they want to be a headset manufacturer. It doesn't make sense for them, I don't think. And right now they're doing it because they have to, and they're willing to eat the cost, and so they have full control over it if they do this route. What I was going to say was the fact that they are also a lot more comfortable now saying bye to Quest 2 users. Like they're a year later, and they are much more ready to put a flag in the sand and go KK Quest 3 only stuff. They're a lot more cutthroat than your console companies are with 100%. Just moving forward, and then they try to make it as accessible as possible, right? I mean, don't forget they still have that, which they've been pretty quiet on, but they launched that program where you could like finance one. And so, right? But like $299 US is a hell of a bargain for the Quest. Sure. So what Ryan was saying, if you guys haven't been following along to the specs, performance-wise, it's essentially the same exact headset. Where the cost cutting comes in is it has a cheaper alternative to a depth sensor for mixed reality stuff. I guess we'll see how that affects the experience. It also goes with Fresnel lenses as opposed to the pancake lenses, which for me is a blow.
Yeah.
I mean, and the
even comparing pancake from Quest to PSVR 2, like that sweet spot is an issue.
Man, I just throw on my Quest 3, and it's just, no matter how you put it on your head, it looks amazing.
Yeah, and you can look around with your eyes. It's kind of the thing is you can look around with your eyes and not see any harshness, like other than anything that Quest is actually doing itself. But whereas with the PSVR 2, well, I guess that's not the best example because of the eye tracking, but that sweet spot's so much more focused because of those curved lenses.
It is a good example though, because even with the eye tracking, you can see the deterioration of the quality when you and the eye tracking can't fix that. I do feel a little more like when I have that PSVR 2 headset on, I feel a lot more like I feel instantly restricted because I'm like, I can't lose this sweet spot. Like, I'll give an example that happened to me just recently is I had a bunch of friends over and I wanted to play walkabout mini golf with all of them. So I pulled out all the headsets. And I was like, and it sucks because I was kind of like, I'll take the PSVR 2 because I had the Quest 2 linked to PC, I had the Quest 3 running native, and I had the PSVR 2. So I had the 3 headsets running. I was like, I'll take the PSVR 2. It's the worst experience. That's horrible to say, but it is. Because even though the graphics are a little bit better on the PSVR 2 version, um, the problem is that when you're in golf stance and you're like looking down and you do this look, can you see him on screen? Yeah, and you look to the
Yeah.
side to kind of look at the hole like you do when you're putting. It was like blur, blur, and I was like, "Fuck!" Like it was an issue. And also the funny thing is I hate to say this, is like because I'm still a pretty big PSVR 2 fanboy, but because I was jumping back and forth to all the versions, Walkabout on the PSVR 2 is actually a lower resolution version than the PC version. It's just unfortunate. At least based on the Quest 3 linked and the PSVR 2 version, it was not as sharp.
I mean, yeah, I mean that still happens now, even with like Quest. I mean, I just
I know,
recently.
but I was just surprised with the Walkabout. I guess I was just I never really jumped back and forth to versions like that, and I always thought that the PSVR 2 version was probably like in parity with the PC version,
Mhm.
and it's close. It's darn close. But yeah, it's noticeable, and a lot of that could just be a lot of it I think is just the sweet spot. Yeah, the blacks are better. Yeah, I mean we get into all that, but the Quest 3 was my point is this display is just really nice. I mean, yeah, I
Oh
know
yeah, it's
it's just a really nice display. It's a really great all-purpose display. It's just really user friendly. I don't put someone in it and ask them if they got it and if it's blurry. You know
yeah.
what I
You're
mean? Yeah.
adjusting the IPD if that's off because you touch that little knob like
Every time I put someone in the PSVR 2, I have to guide them to go over and I do an eye test on them. Because if it's off, it's fucked.
yeah.
And so like it completely changes the experience. And so yeah, the 3S is like you said, it's only going to have it's it's not going to be quite as large of a sweet spot. Um,
As
so it's
it's
a bit of a downgrade, and it's got a lower resolution.
a little bit lower, but
Yeah.
definitely yeah. But it's still worth mentioning, obviously.
Now, what people
Um,
have said is that like a lot of games don't hit that resolution anyway. So it's something like, like the peak Quest 3 resolution, and
for sure.
so for a lot of games, you're not going to notice it. Like I know that for some people who've been lucky enough to play Batman, they said like jumping between the two headsets, it's like the same experience. Like it's
But
really not a big difference.
and there's also the field of view is much more closer to the Quest
Mm.
2 as well. Like so
Was it like 96 versus
96.
110?
Yeah, the 110. And that was jumping from the 2 to the 3 was a noticeable difference because the 2 did feel like I was looking at everything through a periscope. So and the 3 did feel much more in line, with PSVR 2, even the 1. Definitely like not having to see those like the edges of those lenses in your eyes all the time was awesome.
Field of
Uh,
view for me is huge.
oh, I agree.
I've said this many times. Like I understand that a bigger field of view just means a lot more processing power too. Uh, and so they might be cutting some corners there, unless it's just a display thing. I think it's the exact same processor, right? So it must just be a
Yeah.
cutting costs on the display.
Same
But
processor, same RAM. It's like I said, the lenses we talked about, the field of view is reduced, the resolution per eye is down. We talked about that. Um, Ironically, the battery life is better on the Quest 3S by about 30 minutes, or
because
no,
it
about
doesn't have the it
20
doesn't have
minutes.
it doesn't have as high a resolution and as big a field of view, right? So it makes
Yeah.
sense. It just doesn't have to push out as much. I've heard a lot of people say that like unless you go back and forth between the two or you're really anal, which we are, you're not going to notice it. Like and that's probably the aim at the headset. It was kind of like what can we get away with?
Mhm.
And I think that for people who just like want to just jump into like current state of VR, or they want to play Batman, they want to play Aliens, they want to play Behemoth, all these things, and as accessible as possible, price point wise, it's gonna sell like crazy.
Yeah. It's the right time for this. As much as we've kind of thrown shade at Meta in the past for their underhanded ways and underpricing their headsets. Um, Given the current state of VR and the lack of quote unquote AAA games, even though some are coming for PC and we're getting some stuff from for Sony down the line, but with the current state of VR being so Quest focused, and by all accounts, I've heard you heard rather that the Metro on the Quest is supposed to be pretty damn awesome.
Yeah.
Whereas you compare that to something like Arizona Sunshine, where the Quest version compared to the PSVR 2 version and PC version, the Quest version was still a pretty significant downgrade. So there is always that idea. I mean, I just got into, the Max Mustard. I did the side by side between the Quest 3 and the PSVR 2, and there was a few detractors in the comments who were just like, "This isn't fair. You can't be comparing these things," but you can, because there's some pretty significant differences. But if games like Metro, or if you've seen the trailers for Batman, um, it looks good. Like, I'm not saying that it looks like AAA, but it looks good enough to be like, damn, this might be impressive. So my point, as I get, is the fact that the Quest is where 98% of all the big moves are happening on in VR. And granted, there's ports for across the other headsets. Don't get me wrong, but when you factor in the price of a Quest 3S, the introductory price of $300, and then and you're not and you just have it. You now have this VR headset that, if you want, can also work with PC, can play all the big releases, because all the big releases are all cross-platform. Like, it's a pretty, like, it's just that cost versus the cost of a PS5 and a PSVR 2 or PS5 Pro. Like, that cost it's a quarter of the cost, like a third of the cost, and you still have access to everything everyone's currently playing that matters, along with the greatest hits. Because
And
even the greatest hits, we can't even play the greatest hits on PS VR 2, as far as like the PSVR 1 classics. Like, you're kind of locked out in some ways, where and the Quest is viable, and the fact the library is so extensive, like I say it's the place to be. But
well, I mean, but you add in all of the mixed reality stuff and the hand tracking things, like if you want to learn to play piano, or like porn. I'm sorry, but it's like it's a thing, and like in just the web browser in general, and and watching things like Prime and Netflix and big screen for watching videos with your friends.
you
And
can't do Netflix. You can through a
you
browser,
can
but
through
they
the
actually,
browser. I
yeah,
know it's
the
so
app they
stupid that
killed.
they pulled that, but regardless, I mean, there's a lot more you can do with it. And then we go back to the main thing, is that like that leaves the PSVR 2 as being, it's it's got to be where the games are at.
Mhm.
And right now, for example, like going into like fall winter 2024 and 2025, there's not a single game worth mentioning that you can play on PSVR 2 that you won't be able to play on the
And given the
Quest.
fact there'll be Quest 3 exclusives, I
That's what
am
I'm saying.
really curious to see just how different these games will look, their final products, because I've
Well,
heard, like I said,
yes. That's the
great
thing, right?
things.
We're now getting into an era where they're going to be doing Quest 3 only. And I just want to see what that looks like.
Mhm. I agree.
Look, bottom line, I plan to play Behemoth and Alien and and Metro and Zombie Army.
And
Feel like
Starship
I'm missing.
Troopers.
Yeah.
That's an
That's
issue for
that's.
last week's episode.
I I plan on playing all of those games on the PSVR 2, most
Yeah.
likely, or
Yeah.
PC. It depends, but I want to play them on the PSVR 2 if they look great and they just play great, and I have the haptics.
Yep.
That's where I want to play them. Uh, but we'll see. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But like I know, like I had a buddy, I had two friends that came over, both played Walkabout. I threw them into some of the best the PlayStation had. Both bought Quests. I mean, Gran Turismo and Resident Evil just wasn't their jam. So it was like, well, okay, so now I don't have much to woo you with. They wanted Golf Plus. they wanted to play they wanted to play some of those games. They wanted to play mixed reality stuff. Um, they wanted to play Forever Bowl. I don't even know if that's on PlayStation.
The bull is, yep.
But Anyways, this is not a here nor there. I'm just my I guess really my point is just that the Quest 3S, like you said, it's a good time for it. It's positioning itself as a fairly cheap alternative into VR, and with the ability to link to a PC, so you can expand that way. It's a pretty good offering. I'd be really curious to know if Meta's below cost on this. $299 seems pretty darn cheap.
I know they got in trouble for the Quest 2 for undercutting, like where they got in trouble with the FDA or whatever it was in the States. I have no idea how that played out. So I can
Man,
see them. I can see them.
$299 though for the processor, the screen, the lenses, just the manufacturing
I'm
costs.
not disagreeing with
I
you
know
at
what I mean.
all.
I'm just saying, like it's kind of crazy though. Like that's a lot. I mean, the guy who's like, you can't even compare the two to between the PlayStation and the Quest. It's like, well, you kind of have to because they're competing with each other. They
Yeah,
are.
and they're releasing this like I said, it's the same game except for visuals, and to me that matters because the cost of the headset, like the cost to play these games, does it validate having a lesser experience on the Quest or a potentially less experience on the Quest visually, but still having the same core game be intact? Like, or is it worth investing in a Pro and a PSVR 2 to have that maximum experience? Like that is a valid question. It's not apples and oranges. It's apples and some smaller apples. It's the same thing. Like they are not different. Like these games are so watch the trailers. The trailers for these games often show PC footage like on the Meta Quest store. Many games just show like PC footage still. You have to find specific Quest trailers for some of these
Yeah.
games. So it does matter because let's say we're being lied to by Meta. Or, like it's the game industry that has always done this in engine footage, PC footage only for the game. They've always done tried to get around showing the best version of a game that might not actually be what you're playing. So and when you see Alien Isolation, Meta Quest 3, PlayStation VR, Steam, it's like, well, yeah, like what are you losing and what are you gaining across these headsets? So for me, I'll keep doing those videos all day long. I love making them, but it's valid because if I saw the trailer for Alien Isolation or Alien Rogue, oh my god, I'm forgetting the name of it now. Alien
Incursion, isn't it?
Incursion, is just Incursion? Rogue Incursion? I don't
I
know.
don't know. Now you got
I
me
don't
all
know.
messed up.
Now my brain's
Look
is clearly getting fried here.
at the end of
But
at the end of the day, I feel like anyone who's invested more money wants validation that it's worth it for them, and anyone who hasn't spent that money or can't spend that money wants validation that they don't have to spend
yeah,
that money.
yeah, that's
Like
exactly how it comes
that's
across.
why they are so popular.
But yeah, so the 3S, like I said, it is a downgrade from the 3, but
Rogue
it's
Incursion.
yeah, that's what I thought. Rogue Incursion. Okay, good. I thought I was going crazy there for a second. But the 3S, it's not a substantial downgrade. And if you're coming from a Quest 2, then it's a pretty decent upgrade. A little more on par with the Quest 2, but the color pass through and the mixed reality stuff that goes along with it. You can still make mixed reality on the Quest 2, but that black and white makes it suck. It was never meant to have mixed reality, my personal opinion. The fact they've teased mixed reality on the PSVR 2 is not going to go well, even if they do utilize that, because the black and white sucks. It just sucks. And even I like PSVR 2's pass through, even though it's black and white. I do feel like the however they're registering depth, I can tell like what's where. It's not like
It's gotten better.
yeah.
It's gotten a lot of upgrades since then, though. Like
But you
pass
talk about the
through at
PSVR.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about Quest. I'm talking
Oh,
about Quest
I'm
3.
talking about PSVR 2.
Okay,
Like,
sorry.
I like the depth perception on PSVR 2. I even don't hate the resolution of their
Nope.
pass through. It's just the black and white kills it, because when you're overlaying these bright gamey graphics on a black and white background, it just feels like you're still playing a game and you're not messing with reality.
No, it's
You're
not
just
mixed
overlaying.
reality.
Yeah,
It's not mixed realities anymore. It's
it's an
just
overlay.
not-
It's like a gaming
it's not.
overlay on your. It's not the same thing. So just back to my point. So the Quest 3S can basically do all the things VR is advertising that it can do right now, that even the PSVR 2 can't. So for me, like I said, if you've been holding off, I mean, Facebook, Meta has gotten away from having to have a Facebook account to log in. Like you just need a Meta account. I know it's like potatoes, but there is a difference. You don't have to have Facebook to get this headset. And they've kind of distanced themselves from that, where it is now just, it is Meta centric only. And that price and the games, it feels like this, like they're in the best position right now to do VR right. Hopefully, I guess I should say. I mean, this could all go
Well, they're getting
sideways.
close to having a monopoly on VR, and so that leads into other concerns and
Yeah,
maybe another episode.
it's
But
justified because no one else is
I
doing
know it
it.
is.
Like
I know it's
that's the worst
justified. It's
part.
just
Like
not a good thing. That's all.
no, of course it's not a good thing. No one likes a monopoly. Competition's the best thing always. But it's just like I said, Sony just doesn't feel the need to compete. It seems like they're just willing to just keep saying they're supporting it and then not and just relying on third party. And thank God third party is stepping up for that headset because otherwise they'd be in huge trouble. If we didn't have Alien Metro, like Hitman, even though Jack for Hitman, which we'll talk about last week. It's like it's exciting. Like PS like the last few months for PSVR 2 owners have been awesome. Into the Radius, like it's like oh my god, we're getting this rush of higher quality games. It's exciting. But if it wasn't for third party, it'd be, and I know the same thing applies to Meta. It's not like Meta's just publishing first party titles like crazy. They aren't either. Batman's the next one, I guess. Asgard's Wrath was the last one. I'm sure they probably a couple in there that didn't
Yeah,
matter.
but Batman is the definitive um headset seller.
Oh, 100%. It comes with the Quest 3. It
Yeah.
comes with the Quest. Like, dude, like you're getting your dollar value in games back with the games they're giving you with the 3S. Like it's ridiculous just how much they're giving you with the 3S. Like it's crazy. It's like I don't know how
they want your data.
100%, 100%. And I'm sure they're tracking everything I do. But like I said, you get. I'm not sure how the free games work. I don't know that. If you, I'm sure it's maybe a choice from a select pool. Maybe I can't see it being just 6. You get Moss and this and this and this and that's it. So I'm assuming you must get 6 from a pool. I should have known that or looked.
That
That
would be
beforehand.
fun.
But yeah, you get 6 games, including Batman or on top of Batman. I think I get maybe including Batman, but whatever.
They're also offering discounts on their subscription service too for games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like dirt cheap subscription cost if you want to get into like their version of like it's what is it like? Not just games. It's not just the games with gold of the PlayStation Plus, but the upper tiers where you get access
Yeah, I
to like
should know what
a
this
bunch
is
of games.
called.
I know we really should.
It doesn't. We're 90 minutes in. We tend to fade at the end of this as well. So I apologize to Meta for like not knowing these things that we definitely should know.
I want something I want to speak on just briefly is that like for those of you who know us, we're pretty transparent about the fact that like we are part of the Meta part. They don't tell us what to say. They don't tell us what to do, and we don't. I don't think we feel. I can speak for Ryan that neither of us feel really indebted to like talk them up. And so if it comes off
No.
like that, we're kind of like shilling for Meta. That's not the case. I think it's a combination of being really impressed with how much effort they are putting into the VR scene because they're all in, and it's crazy to watch. And the amount of money that they are spending on it. Not only just like on say like a game like Batman or eating the costs of a Quest 3S, but also the money that they're willing to spend on content creators. Like they doubled their partner program just to try to get like their reach out there. But I think that more than it coming off like we might be shilling for Meta, it's for me personally, I guess it's more just of a frustration with Sony because, like I said, it's where I want to play a lot of these games. It's just frustrating that they don't seem to be all in. And like I said, I think the perfect example is we're coming into fall, big game season, and we're eating good in the VR world. But you don't need a PlayStation VR 2 for any of it right now. I think that that's probably going to be it's going to be the best experiences of all of those games pretty much. Between the Quest and the PlayStation, at least. We'll just take PC out of that. But you don't have to. Like, Into the Radius on Quest and Into the Radius on PSVR 2. PSVR 2 version is by far the best version. Quest version doesn't suck. It really doesn't.
No, it's the same thing that said Max Mustard. I'll go back to the Max Mustard as far as 3D platformers in this. Everyone wants Astrobot, and after the disappointing release of not VR Astrobot, um, to me, Max Mustard is there to save the day. I'm not saying it's the equivalent. To me, it's close. I really enjoyed that game. I didn't think it was a paint by numbers platform like many have said. Actually, I thought the level variety across all 40 stages, I forget now, I thought was actually very impressive. My point being, is that the Quest version of Max Mustard plays identically. Like you are getting the same game, um, and it's awesome. It's fun. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10, and for myself, I stand by that. I will defend that. And if you think differently, awesome for you too. But I really do think Max Mustard is a solid platformer. No matter which headset you play that on. I don't think it's on PC just yet. But yeah, so we're like I said, we're not shilling towards any particular company. I mean, we've had episodes where we just gush over PlayStation or Meta or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We are, yeah, we're not playing for anyone's team. We're on Team VR, and that's it. And there's only a few people, there's only a few people playing right now with us. It's PlayStation and Meta. I mean Pico, but they're kind of doing their own thing over in Europe, so we don't really hear much from them. I mean, we
Yeah.
have the new Pico 4 or whatever it's called.
But when it
Um,
comes to like companies that are investing in exclusives, they're not a part of the conversation, which is what brings them, which brings you, that's really what brings you down to Sony and Meta.
they lost their one exclusive, which we'll talk about last week.
Okay. So, yeah, and I mean, I always say like, oh, this game looks questy. I mean, I'm tired of games looking bland and lifeless, having
Yep.
no lighting effects on the Quest. It just drives me crazy. I would say that Batman, Arkham,
Shadow.
I have a brain fart with that. I'm obviously, you guys, I'm a huge Batman fan. I'm all in on this game. But watching the trailers and the gameplay footage and talking to people who played the game, this is the first game on the Quest that I have watched, and I don't wish it was on another platform. Like I don't. I mean, could it look better if it was on the PSVR 2? Yeah, they could probably squeeze more out of it. But the fact that it's trying to be kind of a sequel to Arkham Asylum and that scope of game, and that it almost has a slight vibe of like of a mishmash between like the animated series and the Arkham games. Uh, It looks great. It's got dynamic lighting. So when you're like standing there and the lights over it and you can see your cowl, it looks
Okay,
great to me.
we're gonna talk about this last week.
We're gonna talk about this last week. Anyways, yeah, I'm just I guess it's just I won't get into details on that, but just as far as the Quest conversations go, I'm really excited to see Quest 3 only titles, and that's why the Quest 3S coming out is such a huge thing for me because it really does, especially if they start doing the numbers on with the Quest 3S and getting like all the all the bottom feeders in on it.
It's not though, because it's so close. I know that was
I
a
know,
joke.
but
I
I'm just
know, I
saying,
know, I
but
know.
like like
Okay, well, okay, I know, I do want to end the pod here soonish, but as we to the end of the PlayStation Pro, we basically said like hold off and wait, like just hold up. But as far as as far as the three, I think the 3S is the best value for your dollar that even Meta's put out there since they've been putting out headsets. Like to me, buying the 3S at launch makes the most sense if you're upgrading or buying into VR for the first time. It does seem like it is the smartest choice currently, for the money. It is that is the for the money. I'm not saying, like I said, if you want to get into PSVR, of course, but like that price tag and what you get with with the headset at launch and what you get, just the whole backlog, everything. Like, to me, it's the smartest choice for your dollar
yes, it
right
is.
now.
But if you have a couple extra $100 kicking around, I have heard pretty much universally from people who've played both. As I kick my box to the side, I haven't. Um, I was gonna say that like a lot of that really comes down to um how much you care about the extras, like the better resolution, the better field of view, the better lenses. Universally, what I was going to say is almost everyone I've heard that has played both said they would easily take their Quest 3 over the Quest 3S.
Oh, I agree with that. I
If they
mean,
had a like if a couple extra $100 wasn't an issue. Um then
If I buy a Quest 3 right now, do I get like I wonder how many games I get if I buy like the Quest 3 gets like these 6 games. Does the Quest or the 3S sorry, does the Quest 3 come with like games besides
yes,
Asgard's Wrath?
no, it's Batman now.
Oh, you do get Batman?
I saw it online.
Oh, cool.
If you
Is
buy
it
one,
just Batman? Like you don't
I don't
get
know.
the extra.
I don't
I'll
know.
have to look into that.
They're just advertising Batman.
Because you think they would kind of include that with the
So
3 as
I
well.
just wanted to counter your comment that it's like, is it a, you're saying it's a no brainer, it's the best bang for your buck. I mean, it absolutely is. They're giving away a lot of product for not a lot of money. They're not. I'm sorry. There's just it's that's a shit ton of value. But then the question becomes is like, if you haven't bought a Quest 3 because it was too expensive, well, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
But if you've just been waiting for the Quest 3 to finally start to get like exclusives and it just be like worth the upgrade for you, then what do you buy? It's like, well, do you want the best?
Yeah,
That's
for
what it
only
comes,
it's
do you
what
want
200 bucks more, 180 bucks more for the.
do you want the best? I mean, is really what it comes down to. For me, field of view, 10 like about
Oh,
10
I
more
agree.
10 more degrees of field of view. That's probably the big one for me.
That
Just
was
because
one
a
of the.
lot of
They
these
said going from
because
Quest
a
two
lot
to
of these games
three.
won't hit that resolution.
Yeah,
If,
going from 2 to 3 was the biggest. That field of view increase, like 20 extra degrees, was massive.
Are you going to be watching a lot of video? Like, are you going to be watching a lot of movies? Are you going to be using pass through? Are you going to be using like the new feature where if you look at your keyboard, it syncs to your computer automatically? Like, if you're gonna be using the pass through for Office um, uses, like better depth perception on the pass through, higher resolution in the headset. Yeah, I mean, it starts to make those trade offs start to make sense. Like, if you're a higher end user and you've just been holding off because you're waiting for, say, like some just more reason to upgrade, then the Quest 3 is where you need to go. If
Mhm.
price has been your barrier to entry the whole time, then yeah, the Quest 3S is the way to go. It's like the Switch Lite and the Switch. It's like you only buy the Switch Lite if like you just needed a cheaper, simpler version.
Mhm.
But anyways, that's how I feel about it. I mean, I actually ran into this exact conversation with my two friends that came over to play golf, and the one guy was just like all in, and he was like, and I said to him, maybe just wait, because at this point the Quest 3S hadn't been announced. I knew it was going to, and I was like, dude, it's coming.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's going to be cheaper, and he was like, no, I want it all. I want what you showed me, and he has money.
So we have to wrap this up, Chris. We're already over our time. I want you to thank everybody again.
Yes, Dad.
That's right. And then I'm
I,
going to take care of some business. So please thank the people.
okay, so I've been told to thank all of you patrons. You guys are awesome. Anyway, for you guys have watched till the end of the video, you guys are awesome too. Especially if you're checking in and tuning into us after we've been away, we really appreciate it. We're going to be more consistent, and we'll be around here at least till our next summer break. So
Woo!
we're both happy to be back. Lots to talk about, lots to catch up on. Like I said, we're eating good as VR consumers. As we peruse the inventory of games moving into the fall here. So really grateful to have you guys along for this trip.
You guys truly are amazing. With that out of the way, we're gonna throw some affiliate links in the description below for Quest products and actually even
Chill.
this hoodie as well. If you are curious about where this came from, like I said, the Quest stuff, like they're not pushing this on you guys at all. If you buy a Quest product through us or one of the headsets, we get $80 credit and you guys get $30 credit, I think. So it helps the channel and you guys benefit as well. But that's just there because we can offer this to you. And we'll be doing that going forward for the next little while, just because as part of the creator program, we can kind of give you some perks that do give us benefits as well. But that's as far as that'll go. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say here. We'll save that to the end just so the whole conversation before this wasn't affected by that.
You filthy shill.
Look, man, if I can give someone a little bit of a deal, they get $30 credit, then that's $30 credit.
Yeah, I mean,
and then we get, like I said, and the credit we get just goes right back into playing games. It's not like we're using, it's not like we're like, it's credit. So all we can do is spend it on more meta stuff. It's not like we're like, oh, it's just cash in hand. It's just allows us to like, pad our library and get those games that I miss. You know, like there's Quest gems like Super Hot and stuff that I haven't picked up because I own it for PC, I own it for PlayStation. I
Yeah.
can't buying it a third time. You know, it's hard to justify when I own it twice at least. So that's where it goes. Like I say, we're not making money off this. It just goes back towards the entertainment fund for you guys, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the big thing for me, and I've thought long and hard about this when we were talking about doing the partner program, and like for example that B haptics video that I put out there, they sent us a vest there. I said that in the front of it. For me, the big thing is like I don't mind talking and sharing and promoting things that I loved, the things I like, uh, but that stops there. Like if I don't like something, and I
oh yeah.
wouldn't buy it and I wouldn't play it, I don't like. I just no. Like I can't do it. I
Yeah.
freaking can't do it. I mean, you guys know I used to have a marketing background. That's one of the reasons I got out. Is that like back in like working for I worked for an agency that had a lot of clients, and I just couldn't stand helping people to like promote and sell um whatever they were into. Especially if I just thought I was like, oh, this is such a waste of time. Like this is a piece of crap, or I don't believe in your
Mhm.
cause. And in that same philosophy, like I just can't make videos on it either if I just
Yeah.
don't actually really like the thing. So you can at least count on that if we're promoting something or we've done a partner program, it's because we actually like want in on it, and we think that like for example with the meta thing, it just allows it basically for us at least. There's different perks that other creators can use it, but for us, it's just access to games.
Oh yeah, for
Honestly,
sure.
that's
Yep.
really what it comes down to. Is like if we can get games to do reviews on, without having to spend so much time or fighting with like PR companies and developers and stuff. That alone is pretty much the reason for us being involved in the program. So, and getting early access to hardware, that's nice too. If we don't have to spend thousands of dollars on it. So that's the long and the short of it for us. And I think that's the end of the episode.
It definitely is. Once again, thanks everybody, and we will be back next week live unless something crazy happens, but that's the plan. And going forward, we'll be live. This is the one rare episode where we had to pre-record it just to make sure we kept on schedule. And stay tuned for Batman talk and some other stuff as as Christmas approaches. Might do a gift thing. We've talked about. Oh, I'll talk about Chris. We got lots planned coming, so we're back, baby. Woo!
Woo! And
I
we have
guess we're back, baby. Last week.
and we have a special guest coming to talk Batman with us. So we're pretty excited about that. So stay tuned for that as well.
All right, say
Ryan,
goodbye, Chris.
I was just going to say, Ryan, say goodbye.
All right, say
Goodbye.
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 Goodbye. Bye. Bye.